The galaxy's great council chamber was filled with voices, lights, and pride. Leaders of many alien empires sat in high seats, their banners glowing above them. It was the place where wars were avoided, where peace was made, and where weaker races were usually ignored. On this day, it was humanity's turn to speak. The human envoy, dressed in a plain dark suit, stood in the center of the vast chamber. His voice was calm, steady, and polite. He spoke of peace. He spoke of cooperation. He spoke of a future where Earth and the galaxy worked together as equals. But as his words echoed across the chamber, the reaction was not respect. It was laughter. The sound began with a few alien leaders but soon spread across the hall. Laughter rolled like thunder, cruel and sharp. Some pounded their seats, others leaned forward with mocking smiles, and a few covered their mouths, unable to hide their amusement. They were not hearing peace, they were hearing weakness. To them, Earth was nothing more than a new species crawling out of its home system, untested, small, and insignificant. A child asks to sit at the table of giants, one alien leader mocked loudly. Do they think themselves strong? The laughter grew louder, and the human envoy stood still, his hands at his side, eyes steady, not showing anger, not showing fear. But deep inside the silence of his calm gaze was something the council could not read. Behind him, some allies of Earth shifted uncomfortably. A few races had seen humanity's spirit in smaller conflicts, had fought alongside them, had felt their determination. They knew humans were not as weak as they seemed. But in the chamber that day, their voices were drowned by the laughter of the powerful. Peace. Another alien leader jeered. Peace comes from strength, little human. And strength is something your kind has never shown. More laughter followed. To most of the council, Earth was a joke. But at that very moment, while the laughter filled the chamber, a message was quietly transmitted to the human envoy's communicator. A short signal. A simple confirmation. He raised his eyes and spoke again, this time with a sharper tone. Humanity has always offered peace first. But do not mistake patience for weakness. The laughter quieted slightly, but smirks remained on alien faces. Some whispered among themselves, curious at the sudden confidence in the human's voice. Is this a threat? One alien asked. The envoy did not answer directly. Instead, he looked upward at the vast ceiling of the chamber, as though watching the stars beyond. He then spoke clearly. At this moment, something approaches your skies. A ship. Ours. The council erupted in noise, mockery mixed with irritation. A ship? One alien scoffed. One ship? Do you believe one ship will change our laughter into fear? Again, more laughter followed. But even as they laughed, distant alerts began to echo through hidden channels. Council guards received strange signals from orbit. Their systems showed movement, something massive entering the edge of the system. Some dismissed it as a trick, but others began to feel unease. Reports came quickly, whispering through the chamber like a cold wind. A Terran battleship had arrived. The envoy did not raise his voice to shout. He did not need to. He simply repeated, "Peace was our first word. Do not force us to speak the second." His words were calm, but his eyes were sharp, and for the first time since humanity entered the chamber, the laughter did not rise again. Instead, silence spread slowly, like a shadow crawling across the room. The alien leaders shifted uncomfortably, their laughter drying in their throats as the first true fear touched their hearts. Far above, beyond the chamber's walls, the Terran battleship moved closer. Its massive frame blocked the stars. Its silhouette cast darkness over orbital stations. Those who saw it from afar whispered in disbelief. It was not just a ship. It was a message. Humanity had arrived. And though the council still sat in their high seats, for the first time, they wondered if their laughter had been a mistake. The laughter of the council had turned into whispers, but pride still lived in their eyes. They told themselves the human envoy was bluffing, that Earth was too small to field anything worth fearing. Yet, even as they whispered, the signals kept coming. Across the vast screens inside the council's control towers, A shadow began to take form at the edge of orbit. At first, the readings made no sense. The size was too large for a single ship. The energy signature was too concentrated. Technicians argued, officers recalibrated, but the numbers did not change. Something massive was approaching, and it was headed straight for the capital world. In the chamber, one alien leader leaned forward and spoke with sharp amusement. "Is this your trick, human? Do you send a freighter painted black and call it war?" More laughter rose, though weaker now, as nervous eyes checked the information feeds. The human envoy did not reply. He stood still, as if waiting for the galaxy itself to see the truth. Above the planet, the Terran battleship slid into view. It moved slowly, like a mountain drifting across the stars. Its dark hull reflected no light, only shadows. Whole stations seemed small beside it, as if orbiting debris. Its weapons remained silent, but the silence was louder than war. Across civilian districts, billions of eyes turned upward. Ordinary people stared from windows, from streets, from ships. Children pointed, traders paused, soldiers stiffened. No one had ever seen a vessel like it. Rumors ran like fire. Some claimed it was not a ship but a floating fortress, others swore it must be an entire fleet disguised as one body. Fear spread faster than reports could explain. In the council chamber, the laughter died completely. The leader who mocked the envoy before now hesitated, his words caught in his throat. He turned to the screens. There it was, a single human ship, standing against a galaxy. The envoy finally spoke, his voice calm but sharp. "This is the Terran warship Invictus. One ship. One flag. One message." The chamber fell into silence again. Some alien leaders exchanged whispers, others clenched their hands nervously. They had seen fleets, they had commanded armadas, but nothing in their records spoke of a single vessel so large, so perfectly designed for war. A few tried to save face. "It is only one ship," said the council chair, his voice firm but his eyes unsettled. "The galaxy holds millions. Do you think your display frightens us?" The envoy's eyes narrowed, but he did not answer. Instead, the chamber's screens lit up with a transmission from orbit. The image was clear, the Invictus slowly turning, its weapon ports glowing faintly, energy building like the breath of a giant. The council gasped, but still they tried to hide fear behind arrogance. "Bluff," someone muttered. "A show of lights. Nothing more." Yet their own military feeds betrayed them. Energy levels rising. Weapon systems online. And still, the battleship did not fire. It only hovered, silent and waiting, casting its shadow across the skies. The envoy spoke once more. Humanity asked for peace. Humanity was mocked. Now humanity waits for your answer. His voice was not loud, but the words carried weight like iron. In the far back rows of the council chamber, smaller races began to whisper among themselves. Many of them had suffered under the arrogance of the great empires. They watched Earth with new eyes, not as weak children but as something dangerous, something to be respected. The chamber was no longer filled with laughter but with unease. The pride of the powerful still burned, but fear now walked beside it. Outside, in orbit, the Invictus moved closer, its massive frame eclipsing the stars. Entire districts below dimmed as if night had fallen too early. Panic spread through the civilian population. Security fleets scrambled to form defensive lines, but their captains hesitated. Could their weapons even scratch the surface of such a ship? Reports came in from the fleet commanders. Energy weapons tested against it registered no effect. Shields unreadable. Armor layered beyond comprehension. The council's pride cracked further with each report. And then came the message from the Invictus itself. The voice of the Terran captain filled the chamber, deep and steady. "Council of Worlds. Humanity offered you peace. You chose laughter. Now you will witness strength." The chamber froze, every leader staring at the glowing hologram of the Terran captain. His face was calm, his tone controlled, but his words cut like a blade. No one dared to laugh now. No one dared to move. Outside, the Invictus released a low hum, a sound carried even through the thin atmosphere. Civilians shivered as it echoed through their cities. Soldiers gripped their weapons but did not fire. The shadow of the Terran battleship covered the planet like a warning, a silent reminder that peace was no longer the only word humanity could speak. The council chamber was heavy with silence, broken only by the low hum of machines and the steady breathing of those who sat in fear. The Terran battleship Invictus remained above the planet, unmoving yet overwhelming, like a predator circling its prey. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on the hologram that now filled the center. The image of the Terran captain stood tall, his uniform dark, his posture straight, his gaze sharp enough to cut through the pride of the alien rulers. His voice was calm, but the calmness carried more threat than any shout could. "Humanity came with an offer of peace," he said, his words steady and measured. "But what did we receive? Laughter. Mockery. You think yourselves strong because you sit in tall seats and rule over many systems. You think humanity weak because our fleets are young. But strength is not measured in age. It is measured in will. And today, you will see the will of Earth." The words hung in the air like a blade above their heads. Some alien leaders whispered in panic, others clenched their jaws and tried to mask their fear. The council chair, an old reptilian leader with golden scales, leaned forward and hissed into his speaker. "You dare threaten the galaxy with one ship? You think your little vessel frightens us?" His voice was sharp, but his hands trembled against the edge of his seat. The Terran captain's hologram tilted its head slightly, his expression unreadable. Then his voice came again, soft but heavy. "One ship is enough." A sudden alert rang through the chamber as external feeds showed movement. The Invictus was powering up. Lines of light began to trace along its dark hull, glowing brighter with every passing second. Energy fields expanded outward, wrapping the ship like a second skin. And then, with no warning, the ship fired. But it did not fire at the planet. Instead, its main cannon released a beam of energy into the void, striking a distant asteroid on the edge of the system. The rock, hundreds of kilometers wide, exploded into dust in a single instant. The council chamber shook as the explosion lit the sky, and gasps filled the air. No one laughed now. No one spoke. The silence was deeper than before, heavier, filled with fear. The human envoy, still standing in the chamber, turned his eyes to the alien leaders. He did not need to speak, for the demonstration spoke louder than any words could. Yet he did, his tone steady. That was a warning. Nothing more. But if humanity is pushed again, the next strike will not be aimed at rock. The alien leaders shifted uneasily. Some whispered for retreat, others demanded immediate surrender, but pride still fought within them. The council chair slammed his clawed hand against the table. "Bluff. A single weapon does not make you rulers of the stars. We are many, and you are one." His words were strong, but his voice cracked at the edges. The Terran captain's hologram did not flinch. "You think this is one weapon? This is the smallest breath of Invictus. If you force us, you will know what it means when Earth speaks its second word." A ripple of fear ran through the chamber. Even the strongest empires among them began to doubt. Their fleets had numbers, yes, but their numbers meant nothing against such destructive power. Reports from their admirals confirmed what they feared: no known defense could stop a weapon of that magnitude. Whispers grew into arguments as leaders debated, some urging to give in to humanity's demands, others insisting on pride, refusing to bow. But while they argued, the Invictus made its presence even clearer. The battleship adjusted its orbit, lowering closer to the planet. Its shadow swallowed entire districts, turning day into night. Civilians screamed and fled, markets closed, sirens wailed. The entire world felt the weight of humanity's warning. Back in the chamber, the envoy folded his hands behind his back. "Humanity does not seek war," he said softly. "But humanity will never bow to mockery. Choose your next words carefully, Council, for they may be your last." The words struck like lightning, leaving the chamber frozen in silence once more. Every leader knew the meaning. The laughter of earlier hours had died forever. In its place stood fear, heavy and unshakable. And high above, the Terran battleship waited, its weapons glowing like the eyes of a beast preparing to strike again. The council chamber was silent, yet the silence was not peace. It was the silence of fear, of hearts beating faster, of leaders realizing they had awakened something they could not control. Outside in the black of space, the Terran battleship Invictus floated like a titan, its weapons glowing faintly, its engines humming with power. No one spoke at first, as if waiting for someone else to break the unbearable tension. At last, the council chair hissed, his voice cracking with unease. "You threaten us with destruction, human, but the galaxy has endured threats before. We will not bow to fear." His words sounded strong, but the chamber could hear the tremor beneath them. The Terran captain's hologram remained calm. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he gave a single command. Demonstration. The chamber lights flickered as feeds switched to live images of the orbit above. The Invictus turned slightly, its massive cannons shifting, locking onto a barren moon that circled the capital planet. The ship charged for only a few seconds, and then the beam struck. The moon shattered apart in a flash of light so bright it blinded every sensor, and for a heartbeat the sky itself seemed to burn. The fragments scattered into space, glowing like fire before fading into dust. Entire continents on the planet below watched the sky break open as if the heavens themselves had been torn apart. Shockwaves rippled through the council. Leaders gasped, some stood in disbelief, others shouted in anger and fear. "Impossible," one alien whispered, staring at the screen with wide eyes. "No ship carries that kind of firepower." But there it was. The evidence filled the skies. The Invictus had erased a moon with a single strike, and it had done so with almost casual ease. The human envoy stood silently, letting the display speak for itself. Whispers spread quickly through the chamber. If one ship could destroy a moon, what could an entire fleet of Terran warships do? What if Earth had more of them hidden away? The thought alone sent shivers through the proudest of empires. Some leaders leaned close to one another, their whispers frantic, already planning escape routes or negotiations. Others clenched their jaws, too stubborn to admit fear. Yet no one dared to laugh. Not anymore. The council chair slammed his fist against the table, desperate to regain control. "This is intimidation," he shouted. "We cannot allow one race to dictate the galaxy." But even his own allies did not look convinced. Their eyes betrayed doubt. They had seen too much to dismiss the threat as illusion. And then the Terran captain spoke again, his voice deep, steady, and merciless. "This is not intimidation. This is patience ending. Humanity does not seek to rule you. Humanity does not seek to enslave you. But humanity will not be mocked. We asked for peace. We asked for respect. You answered with laughter. Now you will answer with silence." His words cut through the chamber like steel, and the silence that followed was total. Outside, fleets of smaller alien ships scrambled to form lines around the planet, but the Invictus ignored them. Its weapons remained armed, its shadow covering their world like the wing of a predator. The alien admirals watching the feeds reported the same thing: every defense fleet in range was powerless. Their weapons could not breach its shields, their numbers could not match its fire. They had trained for wars against each other, not against something like this. Civilians across the planet panicked. Markets closed, streets filled with terrified crowds, and soldiers stood frozen at their posts. Every eye turned to the sky, to the dark shape blotting out the stars. The human envoy finally raised his voice, not loud but unshakable. "The Invictus is only one of our guardians. If you think Earth sends its strongest, you are mistaken. We send only what is necessary." The chamber erupted in murmurs again. If this was not their strongest, then what lay hidden behind Earth's borders? The fear only deepened, spreading like poison through the proud hearts of the council. Some leaders lowered their heads in defeat, others remained frozen, unwilling to admit their weakness aloud. The council chair, his pride crumbling, forced a final question through his lips. "What is it you want, human?" The envoy met his eyes, calm and steady. "Respect. Nothing less." The chamber trembled again as the Invictus shifted position, lowering even closer to the planet, as if to remind them of the power above their skies. Its shadow fell across the capital city, plunging it into darkness though it was midday. 4 billions below, it was as if night itself had descended without warning. The council stared upward, their laughter dead, their arrogance broken. The show of power had ended, but the warning was only beginning. The destruction of the moon still burned in every mind, its light still echoing in the skies, and the council chamber sat in a silence so heavy it felt like stone pressing on their chests. The Terran battleship Invictus hovered above the planet, closer than ever before, its enormous shadow swallowing cities and oceans, a reminder that humanity's patience had run out. For a long moment no one moved, no one dared to speak, until finally a voice broke the silence, sharp and trembling with fear. "We cannot allow this," one alien general hissed. "If we bow to humans now, we will all be ruled tomorrow." His words sparked whispers, whispers that grew into angry murmurs. Pride was not yet gone. Some leaders still clung to arrogance, unwilling to admit their weakness. In secret channels, orders were given. Fleets that had been waiting beyond the system were commanded to strike. Thousands of ships aligned their weapons, preparing to swarm the Invictus and erase the shame that had fallen on the council. Reports of their movement reached the chamber almost instantly, but the human envoy showed no fear. He stood calm, his expression unreadable, as if he already knew what would come. Above the planet, the alien fleets ignited their engines, racing toward the Terran warship like a tide of fire. The people below watched with hope and fear as the skies filled with hundreds of glowing ships. At last, the galaxy would strike back. At last, the humans would be put in their place. Or so the arrogant leaders believed. The first volley came fast, a storm of plasma and missiles launched with all the fury their fleets could muster. The planet lit up with streaks of light as weapons rained down on the Invictus. The council leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide, waiting for the Terran warship to break under the storm. But the storm never touched it. The weapons vanished against its shields, swallowed by invisible walls of energy. Plasma bursts scattered like sparks against a mountain. Missiles detonated far from the hull, destroyed before they could even strike. The Invictus did not move. It did not retreat. It did not even shake. It simply stood in silence, taking everything the fleets could give, its shadow steady across the skies. In the chamber, whispers turned to horror. The alien leaders who had given the order looked at one another in disbelief. "Impossible," one muttered. "No shield can hold against that barrage." And yet the evidence floated before them. Their fleets poured fire into the Terran warship, but it was as if the Invictus was untouchable, untouchable and patient. Then came the reply. Without warning, the Invictus released its power. Not a full strike, not the kind that had shattered the moon, but enough. Its smaller weapons fired in perfect precision, beams of light cutting through space like blades. Alien ships exploded one after another, their hulls splitting apart in silence, their firepower erased in seconds. Entire formations vanished before the council's eyes, destroyed so quickly that no one in the chamber could even count the wrecks. Thousands of lives ended in a moment, their fleets broken as if they had never existed. The panic spread faster than sound. Alien commanders screamed for retreat, ships scrambled to flee, but the Invictus only shifted slightly, releasing another wave of fire. More fleets died. More debris filled orbit. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the ship stopped. The surviving fleets floated broken, their weapons silenced, their captains trembling in despair. The Invictus had erased them as easily as one sweeps dust from a table. In the council chamber, no one spoke. No one moved. The arrogance that had lived so long among the great empires was gone, replaced by terror so deep it made them shake. The human envoy looked across the chamber, his voice quiet but cutting through the silence like a blade. "You asked if one ship was enough. Now you have your answer." His words hung in the air, cold and unshakable. The council chair could no longer meet his eyes. Pride had been broken, crushed by the reality that no number of fleets could stand against the might of Earth's creation. And yet the envoy was not finished. He stepped forward, his voice rising just slightly. Humanity did not come for war. Humanity asked for respect. But if you believe destruction is the only language you understand, then destruction is what you will receive. Outside, the Invictus lowered even closer, its weapons glowing again, its shadow stretching wider, darker. The council chamber shook with fear as the truth became clear. This was no bluff, no trick. This was the strength of a race they had mocked, a race they had laughed at, a race that had now silenced their laughter forever. The ruins of the defeated fleets still floated in orbit, broken ships glowing like burning scars across the stars, and the Terran battleship Invictus remained untouched, its vast shadow stretching over the capital world. In the council chamber the alien leaders sat in silence, their faces pale, their eyes filled with fear. The arrogance that once made them laugh at Earth was now gone, replaced by a heavy dread that pressed down on every word, every breath. The human envoy stood calmly in the center of the chamber, his hands clasped behind his back, his voice steady as he spoke. Humanity came to you with peace. We offered respect. But you chose mockery, and now you have seen what follows. Know this, Council, Earth did not send its strongest ship. Earth did not send its full fleet. We sent only one, to remind you that laughter has a price. His words struck harder than any weapon. Murmurs spread through the chamber as leaders turned to one another, whispering in disbelief. If Invictus was not their strongest, what kind of power did Earth truly hold? Some leaders began to tremble, others tried to hide their fear behind silence, but all of them knew the truth. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. The council chair, his pride shattered yet still clinging to authority, raised his voice. What do you demand, human? Speak your terms. The envoy's eyes swept across the chamber. Respect, he said, his tone sharp and unyielding. You will treat humanity as an equal, not as a child, not as a joke. When we speak, you will listen. When we fight, you will fear. And when we offer peace, you will not laugh again. His words hung in the air, each one heavy like iron. For a moment no one dared respond, until one alien leader hissed in desperation. You cannot rule us all with fear. The galaxy is vast. You are only one world. The envoy's gaze sharpened, and for the first time he allowed a small, cold smile. One world was enough to stand against your fleets. One world was enough to build Invictus. Imagine what more we can do. The chamber fell silent again, the truth undeniable. The Terran captain's hologram appeared once more, his voice deep and steady. You will decide now. Accept Earth as equal, or prepare for war. The choice is yours, but understand this. If war comes, it will not be fought with words, nor will it be fought with mercy. Humanity does not ask twice. His image faded, leaving the chamber in silence so complete that even the smallest sound echoed like thunder. Outside, the Invictus shifted, its weapons glowing faintly, a reminder that the deadline was real. The alien leaders argued in whispers, their pride battling their fear. Some wanted to resist, to cling to the power they had always held, but the memory of the shattered fleets and the broken moon crushed their courage. Others urged surrender, knowing that defiance would bring only ruin. Tension grew until it felt like the chamber itself might break. Finally one leader, an ancient being whose empire stretched across dozens of systems, spoke in a low voice. We cannot win. Humanity has shown what it can do. We must agree. The words spread like fire, breaking the last wall of arrogance. One by one the leaders lowered their heads, their silence becoming acceptance. Only the council chair still resisted, his pride screaming against defeat, but even he could not deny the truth. His voice cracked as he spoke, bitter and trembling. If we agree, if we give you respect, what guarantee do we have that you will not destroy us anyway? The envoy's eyes locked on him, steady and unflinching. Because we are not you, he answered. Humanity does not conquer for pleasure. We do not burn worlds for pride. We seek peace first, always. But peace without respect is no peace at all. The words carried through the chamber, heavier than any threat, because they rang with truth. Humanity had shown strength, yes, but also restraint. Invictus could have destroyed the fleets, the planet, even the council itself, but it had not. That restraint frightened the leaders even more than the firepower, because it meant Earth had control, patience, and will. Outside, the Invictus powered down its main weapons, but its shadow remained, silent and steady. It was not leaving. Not yet. The envoy raised his head, his final words echoing across the chamber. You have one choice left. Honor our offer of peace with respect, or prepare to be erased from history. Humanity will not ask again. His voice faded, leaving the council in stunned silence. Every leader knew the truth. The ultimatum had been given, and the galaxy's future would be decided by their answer. The chamber was silent after the envoy's ultimatum, and in that silence the alien leaders felt the weight of history pressing down on them. They had mocked Earth, they had laughed at the humans' offer of peace, and they had unleashed their fleets with confidence that their power would crush a young species. Yet now the broken fleets drifted like ashes in space, their proud banners torn apart by a single Terran warship, and the shadow of Invictus hung over their world like judgment itself. The council chair lowered his head, his voice weak as he finally spoke. We accept your terms. The words were bitter, filled with defeat, but they were the truth the chamber could no longer deny. The other leaders followed, one after another, their voices subdued, some trembling, some hollow, all stripped of the arrogance they once carried. They knew resistance was death, and peace with respect was their only chance to survive. The human envoy did not gloat, he did not smile, he only nodded once, his voice steady as he declared, "Then it is done. Humanity will join this council as an equal, no longer mocked, no longer dismissed." His words were like iron doors closing, final and unbreakable. Outside, the Invictus shifted in orbit, its weapons dimming as if the giant ship itself acknowledged the end of the confrontation, but still it stayed, a silent reminder of what humanity could unleash if provoked again. The alien leaders looked at one another, their eyes filled with shame, and they realized that they had not just been forced into respect, they had been taught a lesson they would never forget. In the halls outside the chamber whispers spread among guards, aides, and servants. The galaxy would change forever from this day. No longer would humans be considered weak, no longer would their voice be ignored. The story of Invictus would ripple across every star system, carried by fear and awe, until even the farthest colonies knew the truth. Earth was no longer a small world begging for recognition, it was a rising power that could not be mocked without consequence. In the chamber the envoy gave his final words, his tone calm but filled with unshakable warning. Remember this moment, Council. Remember the ships you lost, remember the silence of your fleets, remember the shadow of Invictus above your skies. Mockery brought you here. Do not repeat your mistake. His image faded, and the chamber lights dimmed, leaving the alien leaders in silence once more. None of them spoke, none dared. They all knew the balance of power had shifted forever. Outside, among the stars, the wreckage of their fleets remained as a graveyard to arrogance. Salvage ships moved slowly, carefully gathering what was left, but nothing could erase the memory of how quickly humanity had shattered their pride. On the surface of the capital world ordinary citizens looked up at the night sky, and saw the vast dark shape of Invictus glowing faintly against the stars. They whispered in fear and awe, telling their children that the humans had come and the galaxy had bowed. In the years that followed historians would write about this day as the turning point, the moment when humanity stepped out from the shadow of other species and claimed its place as a power that demanded respect. But for those inside the chamber, it was more than history. It was survival. They had seen the edge of destruction and had chosen life instead. They had laughed at humanity once, but no one laughed now. Even the council chair, once proud and arrogant, sat with his head lowered, the sound of his own laughter echoing like shame in his memory. He knew that if the humans had wished it, his world would be ash within hours, his people scattered into dust. Yet they had spared them. That mercy, more than the firepower, burned in his mind. It meant humanity held not only strength but discipline, the ability to end everything yet choose restraint. That was more terrifying than any weapon. Deep in the void Invictus remained for several days, its silent presence enough to keep every ship grounded and every voice hushed. Only when the human envoy confirmed the Council's agreement was signed and sealed did the massive battleship turn and leave orbit, its engines blazing like suns as it slipped back into the stars. For the galaxy it was a moment of relief, but also of dread. The Terran ship was gone, but the memory remained, and everyone knew it could return. From then on every council session began with a new silence, a silence born of fear that Earth might be listening. And though the humans had offered peace, no leader ever forgot that behind their words stood ships like Invictus, waiting in the dark. Humanity had come to the council seeking respect, and in the end they had won more than that. They had won fear, awe, and the promise that their name would never again be mocked. The age of laughter was over. The age of humanity had begun.